Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, this is Dr. Angad Singh Gupta. I'm an assistant professor with Department of Management, Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham India, Bangalore campus. I welcome you all on behalf of Swayam Prabha in this course of Basic Microeconomics in our lecture number 8. Here we will discuss theory of cost, which again comes under the theories of firm along with theories of production. To start with, I will start first with the short-run cost of production, and then we will move to the long-run production function. So before we start our lecture, I wish that you all are doing well, keeping safe and healthy, and you wherever you are staying, that place is coming back to normalcy. Um, so there are basically two types of cost. One is explicit cost, another one is implicit cost. So the explicit costs are those which are made to the factors which do not belong to the production unit. I mean, those who are outsiders but rendered services towards the production or the production process. Implicit costs are made towards those resources which the production unit, the firm owns. That means to the insiders. So the explicit costs are for the outsiders and the implicit costs are for the insiders. Otherwise, there are several cost components which generally we deal with to estimate an economic cost for a particular production unit or a particular production process. So the first type of cost, what we will discuss is total fixed cost. What is total fixed cost? A total fixed cost is the total cost which is paid towards the fixed input. Now, which are the fixed inputs? If you go back to your production classes, there are two types of inputs, basically fixed input and variable input. Which are fixed input? The quantity of input which remains same, the quantity of input of fixed, this kind of inputs, the quantity remains same for whatever the production or the output is. You know, if in my unit, in my industry, I require one security guard. If I produce 10 units, if I produce 20 units, if I do not produce at all 0 units, then that one security guard will be my fixed input. The rent of the building, even if I produce 100 units, I produce 0 units, I produce 5 units, the rent of the building I have to pay, or the cost of the infrastructural cost which I had to bear is the fixed input. Yes, so the total fixed cost remains constant with whatever the production is. And the graph is a horizontal curve, which is horizontal line, which is parallel to the x-axis. So over here you see on the y-axis we have cost given in rupees and the x-axis we have quantity. So whatever the quantity of output is, my total fixed cost remains same. If it is 10 rupees, it remains same at 10 rupees. If it is 100 rupees, it remains same at 100 rupees. Taking an example, we see that quantity of output remains, we can start with 0. With even if I do not have any production, my quantity of output is 10, and with 1 unit of production, my quantity of output is remains 10, and till the 9th unit of production, my quantity of sorry, not quantity of output, total fixed cost remains 10. Therefore, whatever my quantity of output is, my total fixed cost is remaining same, constant at 10. It is not varying, it is fixed. So the inputs for which I am making this cost, making these payments, rendering this cost, they are my fixed inputs, and that is why with the quantity of output production it is or produced, the total fixed cost does not change, but the average fixed cost changes. How? For one unit, my total fixed cost is 10. Average fixed cost is, you can see over here, AFC equals TFC by Q. So my average fixed cost remains constant. That is total fixed cost divided by the quantity of output. And hence, my average fixed cost remains same as 10 divided 1, which is 10. And it continuously decreases till, when I have 5 unit of output production, my what is my AFC? Again 10 divided by 5, 2. My 9 units is 10 divided by 9, 1.11. But remember, you can see the graph here, it continuously decreases and it gets flatter and flatter and flatter and flatter. But remember one thing, it will not touch the x-axis. Why? Because as TFC is never zero, TFC is never zero. As long as it has a more than zero value, this whatever the output is, just take this example. If I have 100 units of output, 10 divided by 100 is 0.1. If I produce 1000 units, 10 divided by 1000 is 1 by 100, that is 0.01. Still it is more than zero. It will touch the x-axis. It will touch the x-axis only if it is zero. So it is not going to touch x-axis, right? So an average fixed cost will be something. So over here, this means the amount of cost I am bearing, even if my output is zero, the amount of average fixed cost, and it continuously decreases and gets flatter and comes closer to the x-axis and gets flatter, but never touches the x-axis. All right. The total variable cost is associated with the variable inputs, whatever inputs that do vary over the period of time and with the quantity of output produced. And how do I estimate the average variable cost? It's simple. Again, total divided by the quantity. So total variable cost divided by the quantity will be my average variable cost per unit of output. Yes, let us see. Now you can see my total variable cost, my total variable cost curve is an inverse S shaped. What does it mean? Inverse S shaped means this is my S, right? I can write S like this. Yes, this is an ulta S, opposite to this S shape. This is S and this is an inverse S. So a total variable cost will take an inverse S shape. That means first it will increase, but you can see the slope is decreasing. It is like this, increasing, but the slope is decreasing. That means the cost is increasing at a decreasing rate. The cost is increasing, but at a decreasing rate. And then you can see after this point of inflection, you can see a break over here. After this point, the total variable cost is increasing, but increasing at an increasing rate, exponentially increasing at an increasing rate. So it is increasing faster over here. Quantity of output is increasing, but the variable cost at the first part, in this part, the total variable cost is not increasing. It is increasing, but not at a faster rate. It is at a decreasing rate. But from this point to this point, my total variable cost is increasing, quantity is increasing, total variable cost is increasing, but it is increasing at this region, you can see it is increasing faster than the quantity increase, than the rate of rising quantity, or how it was behaving initially. All right. We can also look at this diagram over here. So initially, it is increasing at a decreasing rate. Say, with the 1 unit, I can see my total variable cost is 20. With the 2 units, total variable cost is 36. The 3 units, 49. So how much it is increasing by? First 16 units, then 13 units, then it is increasing by 15 units, then suddenly 21 units. So you can see initially it is increasing, but it is increasing at a decreasing rate, 16 and 13. Yes, and then it started increasing at an increasing rate, 15, then 21, then 31, so on, right? But what happens with average variable cost? With average variable cost, again, it is simple, the total divided by the 1. This total over here, 36 divided by 2, 49 divided by 3, and we can see 20, 18, 16.33, 16, 17. So what we observe over here, it is declining first and then increasing again. It is declining and increasing. So it will be a U-shaped curve, right? Average variable cost. Just look at this number. First it is increasing, sorry, decreasing, 20, 18, 16.33, 16, and then it is increasing, 17, 19.63, 25, 31. It is increasing. It's a U-shaped curve. Whereas total variable cost, it is throughout increasing, right? This curve is, it shows that it's a positive trend. It is throughout increasing. Only change is that rate of increase. So if you come here, you can see the rate initially it is increasing, but the rate is decreasing over here. The rate is decreasing, increasing 20, 36, 49, but 16, 13. But after that it is increasing, but the rate is also increasing, 15, 21, and so on. Therefore, my total variable cost divided by the quantity will give me the average variable cost. Yes, it is determined by the price of those variable units inputs. Say x is my variable input, so the price of my variable input multiplied by the quantity or the amount of that variable input, that is my cost. If I hire 100 laborers and each labor takes 20 rupees, so my what will be my total variable cost? 20 into 100, 2000 rupees, right? So that is my, tomorrow I may hire 25 laborers and then the price remaining same, my total variable cost is 2500 rupees. This is absolute, not with in terms of the quantity. Now here we can bring the quantity here. So the quantity is like, say, if you divide total variable cost with the quantity, you get AVC, average variable cost. Total variable cost can be shown as the price of the variable input into the number of variable inputs. And then you can see over here, Pxx divided by Q. I can separate this x by Q, multiply Px. And this x by Q is nothing but 1 by Q by x. This x goes over, so it becomes x by Q. So 1 by Q by x. Now what is Q by x? Q is the total quantity. X is the number of variable input. Therefore, total output divided by input, number of input. What is that? Average product or average productivity. So of that variable input, if it is X, right? So my average variable cost will be the price of this particular variable input multiplied by the inverse, 1 by average productivity. So since average productivity shows an upward sloping, first it is increasing, then it is decreasing. So inverted U shape like this. Yes. Now 1 by this means the curve becomes like this. Now 1 by average product, which looks like this. If this 1 by this means you are just turning it upside down and it becomes a U-shaped average variable cost, right? So naturally, if you are dividing 1 by 10 will be a smaller number, 1 by 100 will be a further smaller number. But 100 is larger than 10. So 10, 100, 10, right? 10, 100 above 10. But 1 by 10 is 0.1. 1 by 100 is further lesser, 0.01, right? And 1 by 10 is 0.1. So now 10, 100, 10, it is like this. 1 by 10, 1 by 100, 1 by 10, it is like this. So the same thing you get here. Average product, average variable cost is an inverse of average product multiplied by the price of the product. And you can see that as average product, if you remember, gives me an inverted U-shaped curve, your average variable cost will be a U-shaped curve. and here you go. Yes. Now, what will be the total cost? Total cost is nothing but the total variable cost plus total fixed cost. What we will tell you is that if you remember, again, I will take you to the total variable cost curve. It starts with the origin, from the origin. So if my input is zero, variable input, right? So the difference between fixed cost and variable cost is, even if my output is zero, my fixed cost I need to pay. So that is why it starts from here. That is why it is never zero. It is constant, right? Even if my quantity of output is zero over here, my fixed cost is still here, right? But variable cost, variable inputs are required only when I am starting my production. So when my production is zero, my output is zero, my total variable cost is also zero. It starts increasing, my output, my total, my variable input is recruited, and my variable cost starts increasing. Remember, it starts from this origin. But total fixed cost is not origin. It is starting from somewhere here, right? And that is why you can observe the total cost curve over here is starting from the point where my total fixed cost is. So total cost is the summation of the, if this is my total variable cost, if this is my total variable cost, so total variable cost plus total fixed cost, which is here, total fixed cost is over here, parallel to x-axis, and add this gap for each and every total variable cost, you will get this gap, and that is my total fixed cost, right? I'll tell you again, this is my total variable cost. Yes, for each quantity of output I have a gap here between the total variable cost and total fixed cost, starting from this output zero. Yes, and this is nothing but the total fixed cost, which remains similar throughout, whatever the output is. The gap between total variable cost and total fixed cost is like this. Yes, and this gap for each quantity of production, this gap is for whatever my quantity of production, this gap remains same. Yes, and the two curves are parallel to each other, total variable cost and total fixed cost. Now, like average variable cost, my average total cost is also U-shaped, but it reaches its minimum after AVC, average variable cost reaches its minimum. Over here, you can see average total costs minimum point is lesser. I mean, it's being reached later as compared to the minimum point of average variable cost. And this is my average fixed cost. This gap is given by, shown by this one. Yes, the gap between, why there is a larger gap between ATC and AVC? Because AFC is this gap. So this plus AVC will get ATC. Why so? Because total cost equals total fixed cost plus total variable cost. Total cost divided by Q is total variable cost divided by Q plus total fixed cost divided by Q. Total cost divided by Q is average total cost equals average variable cost, total variable cost divided by Q plus total fixed cost divided by Q. So AVC plus AFC. So this ATC is nothing but AVC plus AFC. And here this difference ATC minus AVC, ATC minus AVC is nothing but the AVC. And as AFC continues, ATC minus AVC is nothing but the AFC, average fixed cost. And as average fixed cost continues to fall, the two curves come closer to each other. Yes. Now I can show this to you diagrammatically. What is this? This is nothing but the total fixed cost remaining same, total variable cost is given by this 20, 36, 49, 64, 85, and my total cost will be summation of total fixed cost plus total variable cost. And you can see this is 30, 46, 59, 74, 95, and so on. Yes, my average total cost, AC, average total cost, is the total cost divided by the quantity. So 30 divided by 130, 46 divided by 223, 59 divided by 3, 19.67, 74 divided by 4, 18.5, 95 by 5, 19, and so on. And what is marginal cost? I'll come here. After this, I'll come back at this slide again. So the marginal cost, again, go back to the marginal product, marginal utility. Marginal cost is that additional, the change in cost. Wherever there will be marginal, there will be the change. Marginal product, if you remember, was the change in product with respect to change in quantity of output produced. Marginal utility is the change in utility or the change in satisfaction the consumer is deriving, divided by or with respect to the change in consumption or the extra unit of consumption of a particular commodity. Marginal product is total change in output with one extra unit change in input or factor of production. Marginal cost is, you have to connect to that. Why production is changing? Because of input. Why utility is changing? Because of consumption. Why cost is changing? Because of output. Therefore, how much my cost, total cost, is changing with respect to one additional unit of output. Yes, therefore marginal cost is change in total cost divided by change in quantity of production. I go back. Going back to this, you can see this one, say 16, is nothing but the change in total cost, 46 minus 30, with respect to changing one extra unit of production, 2 minus 1. So this is 46 minus 30, change in total cost divided by change in quantity of output, 2 minus 1. So for one extra unit of output, how much cost I'm incurring and how much additional cost I'm incurring. So this is 16, and then again you can see 36 and 49. Or over here is the same thing because they are parallel. TVC and TC are parallel. So the marginal cost you calculate from TVC or you calculate from average total cost. Not average, total cost does not matter. So over here you can see 46, 59, 13 divided by 3 minus 2, 1. 74 minus 59, 15 divided by 4 minus 3. 95 minus 74, 21. 95 minus 74, 21 divided by 5 minus 4. Again, I am at 5. Total cost is 95 to manufacture 5 unit of pens. And what is my, if you want to produce another extra unit of pen, another extra pen, what will be my cost? Total cost is 126. So if my output increases from 5 to 6, that is change is 1. My the cost changes by 31 units, 126 minus 95. So my marginal cost is 31. So the change in cost with respect to change in one additional, or when I'm producing or the producer is producing one additional input of one additional quantity of output. So over here you can see initially it declines 16, 13, and it starts increasing soon. 16, 13, 15, 21, 31, and so on, and faster, right? And the same thing happens, that marginal cost is change in total cost divided by the change in quantity, and the total cost, if you remember, is the change, the price of X, that is the price of variable input, multiply the number of variable input, and I can px, and px is constant. So if you are taking a derivative, this px comes out. So delta total cost is delta pxx. Now x is changing, unit of input factors of production is changing, but price is same, constant. So price comes out. So px into delta x by delta q, and you can just make it upside down with a inverse. So 1 by delta q by delta x. Now if you remember again, marginal product, I just said that how much quantity of output will change. So the total change in quantity of output with one extra unit of production, extra unit of input, sorry, with one extra unit of input. So the change in total output with one extra unit of any particular input. So that is nothing but the marginal product or productivity, and hence 1 by mp. If you remember again, marginal productivity product curve was like inverse. Marginal product curve was inverse U shape. First increases and declines very fast. It intersects, if you remember, intersects on the top of the highest point of the average product curve, right? And it goes down to the negative. Yes. And that is why our marginal product curve is an inverse U shape, and it gives an inverse of marginal product curve will give me a opposite shape, that is a U-shaped of marginal cost curve. So we get a U-shaped marginal cost curve over here. Let me take a simple example. If you buy a new car or a new bike, you have seen initially the mileage. So the cost when you run the bike, drive the car and all, so you see that initially the mileage is very low and it increases. So the mileage increases with the kilometers you ride or drive the car or a bike. And so with the now your quantity of production is the kilometers you are riding or driving this your vehicle. And what happens initially, as the mileage is low, the cost of petrol or the fuel is high. So whenever you are riding your car for the first few kilometers, your cost of fuel, cost of production is increasing, but at a decreasing rate. Because when you are achieving an optimal one, a certain kilometers, slowly it starts falling. I mean, the total cost won't fall because you are buying petrol, right, or diesel. What falls is the rate at which it was increasing. That means the engine is now performing at an optimal level. But after you have ran it for several thousand kilometers, then the engine is old, the bike is old, and it's the parts are old, and then its mileage goes down and your cost starts increasing at an increasing rate. So cost will always increase. You need to buy petrol, the maintenance and all, but initially it is increasing at a decreasing rate, gives you the best performance, and then the cost starts increasing at an increasing rate. So it happens with almost everything. And so if we are trying to connect all these curves together, what we see that the average fixed cost is down here, starting from here, and goes closer to the x-axis, that a quantity axis, and the average total cost is just above the average variable cost. And over here, unlike total fixed cost and total variable cost and total cost, which goes parallel to each other, total variable cost and total fixed cost, you see average, because over there the difference is total fixed cost. So the total variable cost and total cost will be parallel to each other because the difference is total fixed cost, and which is constant. Over here, the ATC and AVC comes closer to each other because they are divided by Q, and that difference is total fixed cost divided by the Q, and that is average fixed cost, which gets narrowed and narrowed. And that difference, the narrowing down of this, is reflected, this difference between ATC and AVC is reflected by this AFC. And another most important point you can notice here, two important points I will say, that average total costs minimum point is achieved at a later output, at a larger output as compared to the minimum point at the average variable cost. So the minimum point of ATC will come later than the minimum point of AVC, and The most important point over here is marginal cost curve will intersect both the ATC and AVC, or pass through both the ATC and AVC at their minimum point. So when you are drawing it, you have to remember that you are taking this marginal cost curve at the minimum points of ATC and AVC. ATC and AVC should come close to each other slowly. This is the difference between AFC. AFC goes down continuously, and marginal cost curve will be like a J-shaped curve rather a U-shape. Will be like a J-shaped curve because it starts, it falls initially, and that's for a very short span of time, and then it starts increasing and passes through the minimum points of this both ATC and AVC, right? Um, Here we get the break-even point. The break-even is nothing but where the, I will just move my report over here. The break-even point is nothing but the, where the total revenue is equal to the total cost. How do I calculate total revenue? Total revenue is nothing but the product of, price of the product of the, output of the product you are producing for one unit of output, and quantity is the total quantity of output of whatever you are producing, be it pen, be it mask, be it sanitizer, whatever it is. So my total revenue is price into quantity. That is my, like, say, if I sell a mask, I am stitching masks, and for one mask I charge say 50 rupees, and then I have produced 10 masks. My total revenue will be 10 into 550, 500 rupees. If I produce 20 masks, then my revenue will be 20 into 50, 1000 rupees, and it goes so on. All right, so the total revenue is nothing but the price multiplied by the quantity of output. If the total revenue curve, so now you remember, this is my total cost curve, this is the total fixed cost, and over here is my total variable cost, right down here. So these are not required over here. So the total cost starts from here, counting or estimating the total fixed cost in here, and then this is the inverse S shape. And initially, if you see that the first few units of production, we always incur a loss. The total cost is larger than total revenue. It expands initially, the gap, that means the loss is expanding initially, and then the total revenue and total cost is similar to each other. Then the firm will break even. That we always say that what is my break even output? That means till what? We know that initially we are making loss, but till what level? At which output level I will make up for my cost, my total. I may not gain, I may not make any profit, but my total revenue will equal to total cost. From there onwards, I can think of making profits again till certain units of output. But initially, my cost will be higher than the revenue. I have to wait for that unit of production where my total revenue will meet my total cost. And over there, I do not make any profit, as you see over here. Yes, zero economic profits. So, but where my profit is maximum, you have to see that where my marginal revenue is equals to marginal cost. That means my, before going to marginal revenue and marginal cost, I will say the slopes of the total revenue, the slope, which is nothing but the price over here, the slope of the total revenue is equal to the slope of the total cost curve. When these two, the tangent on total cost curve is parallel to the total revenue curve, then that means the slopes are equal. Then I have the maximum profit. So the difference between the total revenue and total cost over here is maximum, that the vertical distance between total revenue and total cost. So the difference between total revenue and total cost at this output, which is called profit maximizing output level, will be same. After that will be, will be this one. After that, again the total revenue remaining same, but the cost increases. So the the profit level, economic profit starts declining, and at this point again we go back to a point. At this point we go back to a point where total revenue is total cost, and after that we never make profit because the total cost rises so high and my total revenue cannot meet that, match that, and the cost is always higher. So we basically do not go at this point ever. And beyond this point certainly. So the total revenue and total cost reaches minimum at the point where again total revenue curves, the slope of the total revenue curve and the slope of the total cost curve are similar to each other. So as over here we have seen, in the previous diagram we have seen over here profit is maximum, and over here we can see the loss is maximum, as the slope between the slope of total revenue and total cost are equal to each other. But here we are making loss, right? But we have to pass through that before we reach break even. Yes, we have to ignore this and continue. Right now I will take you to the long run cost of production. Now what is long run cost of production? Under long run cost of production, see, first thing is that the the firm has enough time to make all the adjustments. The firm has enough time to make all the adjustments in its firm size, in its plant size. It can increase the input of labor input, capital input, and whatever, right? So it shows the least per unit cost at which any output can be produced. Yes, at a longer run, least per unit cost, least per unit cost at which any output can be produced at a longer run. This long-run ATC curve, average total cost curve, is also known as planning curve because it helps us to understand what will be the output at the longer run and helps us to plan and budget for future as well, right? So that is why it is often known as the planning curve. Just taking this diagram, I will try to explain you that how different short runs and the cost components at different short run period will contribute to the total long run average cost curve. What we observe over here at a relatively low output level, somewhere over here in the short run, the firm might have this particular SRATC1 curve, short run average total cost 1 curve, right? The next one, and another short run period over here, we see that with a higher output level, we see we have moved to the lower cost curve because again initially the cost will the cost will not fall, but as it is again the over here you can see this is a short run, so initially the cost is falling and then increasing total cost, right? Sorry, average cost, right? So it is first increasing and then decreasing. But now we are in the second phase of the short run, so we can produce a higher output now, and that is why we see over here, and as it's a second one, we can produce a higher output with a comparatively lesser cost as compared to the first one. The first one, our output is low, we are just starting, so our entire average cost schedule will be at a higher cost level. Yes, in the with the experience, with the specialization, with many other factors, technology maybe generally don't consider, though quantity of output, with higher quantity of output, we see the short run average total cost for the next phase of production comes down slightly, and it can come down further for SRDTC3. That's still a higher output level, and then we can see that it is going up and up and up. So first it is declining and then it is going, overall it is going, not only just this point, we don't know where we are producing. Yes, so what we observe over here is we are showing you 5 short-run average total cost curves. Yes, and we will try to connect it, and then the it can pick, the firm can pick anyone which is appropriate for a certain production, certain amount of production, certain quantity of output, whatever is appropriate, they will choose this, right? So for this particular unit of so for this one, this amount of output, they will naturally manufacture in with SRATC2 rather than over here, because this is expensive. They will make the changes and move to the next short run. The same thing happens over here. If I am here, I will rather manufacture at SRATC3 as compared to SRATC2, which is a higher cost schedule. And we ignore these parts, we will, because these are inefficient ones which I am making, like eggs. These are inefficient. No one will produce here, they will rather produce here, isn't it? No one will produce, no one for this particular output, no one will produce at SRATC3. They will continue with SRATC2, right? So these parts are irrelevant for us because these are not optimal decisions. So I will just, you know give them undoes, so completely eliminate them, and this is a long run average cost curve. Now you can decide to connect all of them together. Yes, there can be thousands of billions of curves, average cost curve for a large quantity of output for a large period of time, and then that curve looks very, very smooth. Yes, it looks very smooth. Now the average cost curves are there, where if I am producing at this, I will, at this quantity, I will produce with a short run average total cost. If I am producing over here, I will produce with SRATC2, not over here with SRATC1. Getting my point? So this is how we get the long run average cost curve. In many industries, the number of possible sizes is virtually unlimited, especially in the short, you know, s- small businesses, small and medium scale, micro scale enterprises, petty businesses. We can see that they can vary the farm size, the capacity, if not the capacity largely, but within a period of time, or they can vary it very frequently, and within a period of time they can have a larger, I mean, a variable, varying quantity of production. And so it is possible to have a smooth long run average cost curve. And if you connect them together and find a tangency, like this, then ATC curve will be a smooth one. So we are imagining that for each and uh, every unit of output, we have a short run average cost curve. So for every unit of this, every point on this long run average total cost, there will be a short run curve. Yes. um, so this curve is known as envelope curve, because this envelope, right? Envelope, yes, where you put this the letters and all. So this is nothing, maybe this is called an envelope curve as well, because this covers this all these short run cost curves like an envelope. So that is why this is known as an envelope curve too. Yes. Now, the downward sloping section of the long run average total cost curve, the downward sloping section of the long run average total cost curve reflects upon the economies of scale. Yes, the cost is going down and the plant size is increasing. The average total cost, not the total cost, the average total cost is going down. So there are factors which lead to lower average cost of production. These factors are basically labor specialization. When you are increasing the your production capacity, your output level, with the labor specialization, your jobs can be subdivided. Workers can efficiently produce their output based on their efficiency. Managerial specialization can come into picture, that a person who is specialized in marketing, they take care of marketing. A person who is specialized in human resource, someone is specialized in finance. It's not that everyone is doing everything, where there will be inefficiency. All right. And finally, the technology comes into play, where when you are producing a larger quantity of production, your equipment will be advanced, and you will try to bring technological efficiency, and that will naturally decrease the cost. Right. However, on the contrary, the upward sloping section, naturally you can see in the upward sloping section, that when you produce after a certain output, after here, when you produce a certain output, this average total cost continues increasing. Yes, so this is known as diseconomies. This is known as diseconomies of scale. So as plant size increases, there are factors which lead to higher average costs of production. Now, which are those factors? They are basically hierarchy. There will be too many unnecessary labor force, or they may not be in a larger setup. They are ownership towards the institution, towards the organization, towards the production will be minimal. And there can be politics, there can be so many other things, bureaucracy and all, where the production will not may not be beyond a certain point, of course. So every it can be 1,000 units, it can be 10 units, it can be 1 crore, millions or billions of units. So you don't know, it varies from industry to industry, from farm to farm, from its capacity to capacity. But based on the capacity, I must identify that what will be my best output. Beyond that, if we want to push that output, given a certain amount of capacity, it will just lead to inefficiency and too much of complications, which will increase the cost. And that is why it is these economies of scale, right? These economies, like, which is not an efficient one. The choice is yours, right? Whether you will produce at this minimum point, or you will still continue producing, your output being over ambitious, and then leading towards your resulting in these economies of scale. All right. So sometimes there is a segment where long run average total cost is constant, you know, like something like this, a little flatter on the minimum point. So that is known as constant return to scale, where even if the output increases for that period of output, the cost curve becomes so flat down there that it is a constant returns to scale, where the cost does not vary, because the um, with the quantity of output whatever you are increasing, and when you are employing more labor, they are probably manufacturing the same amount. That is why it is average cost, not the total cost. So that is flatter. So even if it is increasing, the cost is increasing with the output of production, with the required input of production or recruitment of the factors of production. The cost is increasing, but it is increasing at the same level. So output, factors of inputs or factors of production, so outputs, inputs, and their cost are all increasing the same rate. So that is why it's a flat curve under the long run average total cost curve, which is nothing but the constant return to scale. Right. So the formulae are literally similar. So this is total cost divided by q, you will get average total cost. And the marginal cost is this change in total cost in long run, with the change in 1 unit extra output. So it is as similar as the short run cost curve. And you can see over here is, when my marginal cost is less than average total cost, I am in an increasing return to scale. And when my marginal cost curve is above the average total cost curve, and then I am in the uh, then I'm in the decreasing returns to scale part. And at this minimum point, we reach an efficiency. So this is the minimum efficiency scale, and over here we can see a constant return to scale for some time, if it sustains for some times. right? So again, marginal cost curve, when it is lesser than the average total cost curve, we are in increasing return to scale. It is economies of scale. When the marginal cost curve is above the average cost curve, this is economies of scale, and we are in the decreasing return to scale. um, and when we are trying to look at the optimal condition, our long run marginal cost curve and short run marginal cost curve should be equal at that point of should be minimum at their minimum point over here. The short run cost curve and the marginal long run average cost curve, they are at the minimum and they are at the same point. And the marginal long run marginal cost curve and also the short run marginal cost curve will pass through them from the through the very same point. So the long run marginal cost curve will pass like this, short run marginal cost curve will pass like this, and at this point short run average cost curve at its minimum and long run average cost curve is also at its minimum, right? So we have discussed about economies of scale and these economies of scale, and this the last point here is these economies or these economies of scope. So when a firm produces more than one product, it may also experience an economies or diseconomies of scope. Now, what is this economies or diseconomies of scope? Is that economies of scope exist when a single firm producing multiple products jointly, when a single firm produces a multiple products jointly, then their production process may be cheaper, because a farm which is producing probably three types of car together, or a farm which is producing sketch pens, dot pens, or dot pens, gel pens together in the same unit, then it is naturally cheaper rather than having a separate unit for ball pen and a separate unit for ink pen or gel pen and a separate unit for sketch pen. That will be further more expensive. So when they are producing together, in the single unit, then it is cheap, and that is how they can get the economies of scope. So if they cannot, then that is the diseconomies of scope. So we will finish our lecture today over here. This is the theory of cost, and we are done with our lecture 8. And um, so next day we will enter into the market and types of market, imperfect market, perfectly competitive market, and so on and so forth. So goodbye, take care, and hope to see you soon.